Of this community council. Did anybody pick up that subtlety there? And the vice chair, I have an announcement to make. Get right to it. Last month at our board meeting, I resigned as chair, and Sarah Edelman, who is our vice chair, assumed the position. I think that, did we vote on you or did you automatically?
As I suspect most of you know, the Georgia apartments are in the process of being evacuated because the landlord repeatedly refused to enforce fire code regulations and ensure the safety of their residents. As a result of this, a lot of people have to move with so little notice. The Utah Community Action Group is accepting donations for funds to help those people with relocation costs, the deposits you need on a new unit, moving costs. It's a lot. We usually pass this to raise funds for the Liberty Wills Community Council, but we think the need is greater right now for these displaced people. So if you have something to give and you would like to do so, please feel free. And we can also get you a URL if you don't have gas on you tonight, but would like to give something else. Thank you.
Thanks, Shawnee. Okay, a couple of housekeeping items before we dive into business today. Just a quick reminder, we are live streaming this meeting today, and a recording will be available after the meeting is over. So if you ever want to check back in on a conversation, or if you had friends or neighbors that couldn't make it tonight, do know that there will be a recording available for you later. Also, at the back of the room, we have copies of surveys that we are running right now. We want to hear from you guys what the topics are that you'd like us to discuss at meetings. We also have some questions for whether or not you've ever visited our website, what kinds of resources you'd like to see from us. So feel free to pick up a copy of the survey from the back of the room, fill it out, and if you leave it on the table when you leave tonight, we'll be sure to collect that and take your feedback. All right, and the next item, Janae, do you want to jump up and talk about our website?
Part of the modern administrative duties is maintaining a functional, safe website. And part of that we use for administrative reasons too, right? To archive these meetings, our notes, so that we're all up to all of the requirements to be a nonprofit organization. So, but also we want to make it a better communication tool. And so, as Sarah mentioned in the survey, and we're going to probably maybe circulate the survey online as well to our email list. Is to get some input about the website or things that you'd like to know more about or to be on the website. So we'll get some feedback there. The other thing that is notable to you is that if you have some great photos lying around of this lovely neighborhood, old ones, new ones, somewhere in between, we're going to run a little photo contest. And I'm still working out some of the rules, and I think I'll communicate via email. So you see the email is important. We're going to communicate via email, but if you have some photos, even if they're not digital and you maybe need some help, maybe digitizing them, you can reach out to us, and we'd like to basically use that for our communications, primarily the website, and be able to show more about the neighborhood through all its stages of development. So if you have any questions, my name's John A. I'm the board secretary. I'm glad to answer your questions about the website, or any of the people that are on our marketing and communications committee. We'll be glad to answer them. So I'm going to get the board and pass it around for you guys to sign up for the email list. It's also helpful, please sign in if you're already on our list. It's helpful, good, it's going around. So it's helpful just us to keep tally of attendance too, see if we're reaching you, so thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. All right, next thing, you probably feel like this agenda item has been on our agenda for the past several months, and that's because it has. We've been working through just the details of trying to align our business year with the calendar year. This started over the course of the summer. We started by aligning our fiscal year with the calendar year. Previously, the Community Council's fiscal year ran from July through June, which is pretty traditional for nonprofit entities, and it aligned with the city fiscal year as well. But we run a lot of events during the summer, and the fiscal year was splitting our actual business season completely in half, and so we were having some issues there. We were able to correct that over the summer by a community vote on a bylaws amendment. However, while we aligned our fiscal year with the calendar year, we didn't align our election year with the calendar year. So now we had elections happening in June and July, while our business year was aligned with December and January. At our last board meeting in January, we were able to put forward a proposal that amended our bylaws. The board has approved the proposal, and now it's up for the Community Council to vote on it. The language has changed a little bit since we last notified you of this, so please take a look at it. The community has 30 days to review the amendment before voting on it. The bylaws are a heavy document. They are available on our website, and I just printed page 13 so you could review the actual changes themselves. We won't vote on them tonight, but come back to our March meeting and we'll have a chance to vote on them then. Any questions on that? Yes.
That'd be difficult. Last December, our meeting was canceled due to weather, and if the election had been during that meeting, we'd start the year with no committee. Would we complicate the process too much trying to move the election maybe to November so that we have an emergency fallback? Or is it a bit late in the process?
That's a good question and a very fair point. As I recall, this past December, it was partially due to weather and partially due to people that had outstanding obligations. So we had quite a few officers that couldn't attend the meeting as well. There was really a question of whether or not we could live stream the meeting. And we had a couple of folks that we really wanted to give a solid audience to. And without the live streaming service available and without attendees available, we were concerned about audience for our presenters.
That's the only one I've been in the council for years, and that's the first one.
Oh, yeah. So I think that was an unusual circumstance. Yeah, and if that does turn out to be a problem, I think we can definitely revisit that and look for other considerations in the future.
We could be the following week or something if we have.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Great question. Any others? Okay, excellent. Next on our agenda, we have Taylor Anderson, who is here to present on behalf of the Wasatch Cooperative Market. Taylor?
Hey guys, I'm a member of the neighborhood. I live here. This is my community council, so it's exciting that we have a great new chair after Bill did a good job. I saw that on Elko's community council agenda a couple of weeks back. Somebody from the Wasatch Co-op gave a presentation on where things stand. And I thought I might as well, I'm a member of the co-op as well, and I thought it'd be a good thing to come and present to my neighbors about that too. Do you guys know what a co-op is in general? George does. George knows a lot of stuff.
Tell us.
Yeah, a co-op, you've probably seen the signs. This is Wasatch needs, or Salt Lake needs a cooperative market, invest today. It doesn't exist yet. That's why you might not know what the Wasatch Co-op is. They're doing a campaign to get more members. I signed up the day that I found out that there was a campaign going on, and then I walked out. I signed up at the downtown market, and I left, and I was kind of shocked that I had just spent some money on something that didn't even exist yet. They're in the middle of a campaign to get, once they get another 100 members, they'll actually announce their site location, so that's why it's an exciting time. They've got 650 members, give or take, and if they get 750, they will announce the location that they pick. What's exciting for this neighborhood is that the bulk of members so far, they live north of I-80 and east of I-15, and they want to give good access to everybody who's outside of those boundaries because it's pretty easy to get to those locations from inside the city, but they've got membership across the state and across the county, so they're looking kind of in our area for wherever they're going to pick a site, but they haven't done that yet. So Just wanted to update you guys on that. They're just trying to get the word out and spread the message that there's an attempt to open a co-op. A little more on what a co-op is. It's basically a super local way to support local farmers, ranchers, a full-service grocery store though. There'd be meat, there'd be cheese, there'd be crafts. It's basically a farmer's market, but it's year-round and it's every day. So when I was preparing for this, I was thinking, what would we most be concerned about potentially? Is this going to put the farmers markets under? No, it's not. I would hate if that happened because I love the Liberty Park Farmers Market. I love the downtown farmers market. That's where a number of my friends, when I first moved here, came from. I have a backyard garden myself. So in preparing for today, and I'm not reading from my script like a TV reporter would, but I reached out to a couple of people that I met. They run Top Crops, if you guys ever get any greens from them. But they had just had a backyard garden, and then they said, you know what, screw our day jobs, we're going to go full-time, and they're full-on farmers now, 2 years, thanks to the Liberty Park market and downtown market. And so I said, hey, if there was a year-round market, would you guys go, screw the farmers markets and we're going to just sell here? They said, no, actually, we have already maxed out our sales right now. We want to expand the farm. And the only way to do that is to get into markets that are full-time. So they can't expand the farm until they have more places to sell at. And they're not going to make it into like a Smith's or a Sprouts. They need something that's a lower level of barrier of entry. So the co-op is kind of right for them. So it was a kind of a big business day for Elliot because he didn't know that there was a campaign until I texted him this morning. So I've talked pretty fast. I just wanted to get the word out there though, because I again didn't know until 1 year ago at the downtown market that this was even a campaign. And they're so close to actually picking a site. And then once they pick a site, that things really pick up momentum before they actually open. So does anybody have any questions on where things stand? Yeah.
So I remember the URL isn't super straightforward.
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah, good question. It's wasatch.coop, wasatch.coop, but there's no hyphenation. Yeah, so there's more information there. I don't have any pamphlets or anything, but if anybody wants more information, like I don't have a way to sign you up to become a member, but I could take your information and hook you up with the right people. Again, I'm just a member, owner, and wanted to spread the word to the neighborhood. So, any other questions?
What does it mean to be a co-op member?
So you're basically invested, and it's the way to get the thing open. I think it's actually going to be open to everybody once it has enough members, which I think is about 1,000. But for right now, you're invested. You can go to the board meetings, and you're helping with the campaign in that way. Yeah.
How much? Yeah.
It's 300, and they do different.
I may have missed that. I'm sorry.
I didn't say it actually. I was told not to unless I was asked. But yeah, it was a payment plan. I was budget conscious, and they did it. They could have done it over 2 years. They could have done it over 3 years, monthly payments. I did 1 year, and I just finished off my payments. So I'm full on a member now. Anybody else? Cool. Hopefully I didn't talk too fast and you guys took something away. So I'll be around the whole time. Come at me afterwards for any other questions if you want to talk one-on-one. So, thanks.
Thanks, Taylor. Do you have anyone from Station 8 here tonight? Looks like no. Detective King, thanks for making it out. I know you had a test this evening, the class that you're taking. You ready to come up and be next on the agenda?
Alright, so for those who don't know me, I'm Dave King with the Salt Lake Police Department. I'm the Community Intelligence Officer for this area. Probably one of the biggest things I wanted to address with you guys, I mean, I know we're always talking about car prowls and thefts and burglaries, but I just got, earlier today, excuse me, I got sent a kind of a heat map of the area, and there is a little bit of an intake that we've noticed with some, mostly car prowls. And it kind of goes from the area of, wait, I can see it on the map. Probably about 9th South to 2100 and about 3rd East to 6th East, right in that area. They don't really have any suspects. I'm still in the process of trying to see if I can find out any trends. But it says that usually it happens in the evenings or at night, at overnight. They break windows. I know I've been saying it a little bit lately. I don't know if I've shared it with this group, but one of the big things that gets taken, a lot of people overlook. I mean, we always talk about wallets and cell phones and money, but one of the big things that's kind of taken us is license plates. And that is one thing that's listed here is license plates are taken. So see if you can pay attention to what your license plates are, know what they are, pay attention for your front and back, because a lot of times they'll take one and they'll replace it with another one. So you'll be driving around and 2-3 months later, or maybe a couple weeks, you might get pulled over because you got a mismatched plate. You didn't even know it was missing. Pay attention to license plates, because that is something that they do, is they'll swap them out with a similar vehicle. Identification documents is actually pretty huge. If you have any kind of documentation of any kind of importance, please don't keep it in your car. A lot of times people keep titles to cars in the car. They leave spare keys in the car. Don't leave any of that stuff in there. Cell phone chargers, a lot of times somebody might have their cell phone charger plugged in, connect to their phone, and then they slide it under a seat. Well, they'll look at the cord going from the outlet underneath the seat, and they figure there's a phone in there. So pay attention to some of that stuff. If you guys have anything, if you notice anything, excuse me, feel free to reach out to me and let me know. I'm not sure exactly how all the street lights are. If you got street lights that look like they're out or whatever, get a hold of the streets department and see if that's something that they can replace, just to lighten up the area, just to try to push some of those problems away. But that is an issue that was sent to me, and I was kind of looking at. I'll be following up, seeing what we can do. But pay attention to who's out and what's going on, and be neighborly. Know who your neighbors are, and if they're going out of town, watch out for their place and let us know if you guys got any problems.
Oh, question. Well, what about the car registration? Is it still okay to keep that?
Yeah, you do need car registrations in your car registration and your insurance.
Okay.
A lot of times, it's now getting kind of common that they'll email you insurance. So I think I got my insurance on my phone, and if I got some kind of verification, that's usually what I go for.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And they may change it to allow registration on the phone. Maybe. 50s neighbors are complaining about a lot of break-ins on 50s. You probably know about it, but I just heard another complaint. So we said everybody.
50s and what south?
9th to 13th south.
9th to 13th. Okay.
They said almost everybody has had problems in the last few months with break-ins.
Looking at the heat map, they did indicate it's a mixture between vehicle and burglaries. Mostly what they were looking at is the car prowls itself. So some of those I need to go back and double check with and see, just kind of check that area and see what I can find.
Okay, I just encourage them to call you some more.
Yeah, great idea. Thank you.
But they're not calling. No, I'm serious. They're after 1 or 2 break-ins, they stop calling. Yeah. That's a problem we've always had.
Yeah. You know, it's one of those things where I think it can be kind of frustrating. Sometimes, the frustration of having it continually happen, and sometimes the fact that we might not be able to find the person at the time. Sometimes it's something happens, there's already somebody we're looking at where we have possible information that what you have might help us out. Sometimes it might take a while. I know many years ago there was an Olympian in the Avenues, Dave Zabriskie, that had his house broken into, and because his stuff was unique, we was able to trace it. Well, we were able to close out several burglary calls because we were able to trace it, but it was because people were calling in. We had little bits and clues here or there. Sometimes it does take a little bit. Sometimes it may not ever get solved. Sometimes it does solve. It just takes a while.
This is a repeat from the last community council, but I wanted to emphasize to this community council, Lisa Burnett, the dispatch director, is working on trying to figure out why some of the calls from this area are not getting reported on the crime map. So she's trying to make sure it's happening. When you call in, please make sure you ask for a police officer or a crime report. If you do it online, it's real easy. There's a button on the home page to fill out for a crime report. But this area seems to not be getting enough crime reports officially reported.
So with that, thanks, I completely forgot about that. Sometimes, depending on what the call is, if it's a car prowl, usually what happens with a car prowl, if we got no suspect, no witness information, it doesn't matter what prints we get, the prosecutor won't prosecute on that kind of stuff. So a lot of times it's just a report that we'll just show up, take the report, give you the case number, and leave. sometimes because of backlog, it might take officers a little bit of time. So to save you guys time, that's where you can get online and file an online report. I understand that sometimes there's been issues. If you have an issue with that, call our dispatch and have them get an officer. So a lot of times with just the car problem, the officer might just call, get the information, give you a case number. If you call dispatch, I've heard quite a bit that sometimes the dispatch says, hey, we're not sending somebody out on that. That's not a priority for us. It's a priority for you guys. If it's something you feel like an officer, you want to talk to an officer about and you get that from dispatch, definitely let me know the situation, but tell dispatch, I would really like to talk to an officer. So I've actually heard quite a few people say that. But if you do call dispatch, get a case number. Say, I need a case number for this. That way we can track, because I guarantee if you guys call dispatch, everything's logged. Everything's logged. You call and want an officer to respond, there is a case number that is attached to that. So get a case number for documentation purposes. And if you do have issues with dispatch, say, I do want an officer. I would like to even at least have him give me a call, and then we can figure out what's going on from there. Anything else? If you guys need to get a hold of me, if you get onto the Salt Lake City website, go to slcpd.com, and there is a spot where it says find my CIU officer, and you can find me there. My phone number is 801-799-3624, or you can email me CIU District 5 at slcgov.com, and that goes to me and my sergeant. So if I happen to be out and it's a situation that needs to be handled that day, he can get someone else in the office to take care of it. All right? I'll be around for a little bit if you guys have any questions for me.
I know the next item on our agenda, so they might not be here until 7:30. Do we have the folks for the zoning amendment? Is everyone here? You guys ready to present? Come on up.
Judy Hanson.
Well, while they get set up, my name is Lauren Tracy, and I'm a planner with Salt Lake City, and I'm working with these applicants, and I'll just kind of explain the process that they're going through, and they can dive into the details of their project and maybe their future plans. So this is a zoning map amendment request for the properties at 402 and 416 East, 900 South. So it's the Manolis and Southeast Market, if you're familiar. And right now, these properties are kind of split zoned. So that means that there's 2 zoning districts covering the properties, and the zoning district actually slices the building in half, which is a little bit unusual. And so they'd like to rezone it so that all the properties have the same zoning for consistency purposes. So right now, these properties are zoned, it's called CN Neighborhood Commercial and RB Residential Business, and they are proposing to rezone them to CB with Community Business District. And these are all kind of mixed-use districts, small-scale neighborhood districts, but there's differences in terms of zoning and setbacks and things of that nature. The process that they'll go through is this will be reviewed by the Planning Commission, and they'll give a recommendation to the City Council, and the City Council will make the final decision. I think that's everything in terms of the process, but if you have any questions after they present, feel free.
Can everyone see the boards okay? I'm not sure. They're not great, but I can be Vanna White and walk them. But hopefully you can see them. Mary worked really hard on getting them shooted, so I'll let her start.
I'm Mary Warner. I'm the architect helping Kathia Dang, the owner of the property, with this rezone issue. One of the things I just want to touch on, Lauren touched on a lot of why we're here, but this is a site plan of the existing site, and it shows you a little bit. This is the Asian market with the bakery and restaurant, and the orange color shows where the RV coverage is, and then within this lot, we actually split to CN, and it splits right on the building. So we're here to, first of all, address this, and to do an entire zone. It needs to be rectified for purposes just because it's a mistake. So we feel it's a mistake. So anyways, with this going forward and developing the property and having the best use for the property and the neighborhood, we feel that the community business zoning would be more proper for this actual location. The building was actually built in 1941 and has been a larger commercial building with a market, restaurant, and bakery currently in it. And it's more like community business zoning, which is actually similar to the stuff that's at 9th and 9th. Several of the items that I feel like you should consider is, first of all, the zoning split zone needs to be rectified. And then the next thing is that this actual building is more in line with what a community business zone label would entail. Also, the actual portion of the commercial or the neighborhood commercial lot size is limited to 16,500 square feet, and the actual portion of that is actually over that currently, the actual part that's labeled commercial neighborhood. So for us to even change, it wouldn't be possible for us to rectify the split zoning with the commercial neighborhood. And then on the flip side, the residential business is not really proper for what this property has been for like 80 plus years. So residential business is smaller scale. Right in that area, a lot of the stuff is houses that have been turned to offices, restaurants, that sort of thing. So we don't really feel like the RV is appropriate to rectify the zoning issue here. The other piece is that the Central Community Master Plan calls for low-density residential mixed use in this specific area. And it's even cited in the master plan that at Night South between 200 and 500 East, a mixed use would actually fit within uses in that area. Next, I wanted to introduce Kipia Dane, a responsible building owner in the area, who also does several other projects in the area to upgrade and bring fun uses to the neighborhood.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming out tonight. This is my first community council meeting, so I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited to be a part of this community. To give you a little backdrop about myself, my family moved to the state when I was 6 years old. And we took residence on 3rd East, just past 13th South. This area, this neighborhood, was my introduction to America. We immigrated here from Vietnam. And so since then, I attended East High School, also part of this greater neighborhood. And then for 20 years, I owned and operated a small business on the upper 9th and 9th area. So about 5 years ago, my husband and I started looking into specifically this Liberty Wells area because we found that having owned and operated a business on the upper 9th and 9th area, we invested there back in 2004 before it really launched. I mean, the old days were the coffee garden and Cahoots was on the corner before the Children's Hour moved over. And then Mutual Beauty Supply, the famous Mutual Beauty Supply, that is now a big residential development, as you know. And then, there's all, it's booming up there. And then the reason why I worked in the neighborhood, actually I owned a little small salon down the street where now the tap house is. And then a dear friend of mine, well, she has since become a dear friend, Catherine Litchfield, who is here this evening with us, designed and built this amazing building. It's 926 East 9th South. I was privileged enough to be able to acquire that building and have since, and that's where I operated a business out of for a good number of years. It now, Centered City Yoga occupies the building. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. So about 5 years ago, we started looking at this area. Again, just because it was home to me. It was sort of where I started out. The Asian market concept, or what they want to do with the space, is not indigenous to our beliefs in our community. So part of what came up for us in the submission of our initial plans was this weird split zone that kind of cuts just right on top of where the restaurant is and the Asian market. It has to be rectified first and foremost. Again, Mary addressed the issues as to why it needs to be. Without doing so, we can't do anything with the space. Our hope is to be able to rehabilitate the building. We don't have plans to tearing it down, which is important to mention because it's a lot more costly to try to salvage it than it would be for us to tear it down and build something brand new. But we hope that there's some characteristics behind its walls. It used to be the old Skaggs building, as you can see. Apparently there's some lovely windows that have all been boarded up since. So we're hoping to sort of revamp the neighborhood. In addition to, I think it's important to note that there is a lack of work-live spaces in our neighborhood, particularly ever since art space was taken out of downtown. I don't think that there's anything that has that replicates that, the ability to allow people to come in and have some semblance of affordability in a space that they can both work independently from their home and as well as a live space. So we're hoping to be able to incorporate that into our design and building of the space. And we hope that, to be honest, I don't want to do a project without the community support. We want your feedback. It doesn't serve us to build something that doesn't serve the community, because the merchants and the small businesses need your support. They need patrons, and we want to be able to bring the community together in hopes to add some of our ideas. These are just concept ideas, but we thought it might give you a little bit of a visual. In looking at the 9-line corridor and its future projection of where the bike path is going to link, my husband's back there telling me to hold it up, but there you go, to where the bike path is going to link Liberty Park. Because this is such a large parcel, if you look at it here, you can kind of see that we basically occupy the whole corner space here. We're hoping, as the city is pointed out in their master plan for the 9-line corridor, they're hoping for points of interest. Because of our large parcel, we hope to become that point of interest. We hope to be able to have a gathering place where people can actually have outdoor seating. Most of our design that Mary and I have gone over, we would like to propose most of the outdoor seating to be on the 9th South, facing 9th South, because it's the commercial side, because it's the street side, and also because out of respect for the residences in the back of the property, we want to keep it contained to only the 9th South street side, so as not to disrupt. Our design is also we're very cognizant that there is a shortage of parking in the area. I believe, although lovely, the the ninth area is great. Don't get me wrong. It is congested. It can be problematic, and I have heard from people within our community in this area specifically that is one of their concerns. So we want you to know that we're addressing that. We're not planning on downsizing the parking availability that's currently there. So about 24 ground spaces.
And there's like 11 additional lanes that are on the street, like angle parking.
Okay. So we actually have more parking in this lot than any other properties in the area. Our idea in rehabilitation of the building is to not make it larger, but to actually shrink the back wall, because there is one failing wall in the very back of the building. So we'll actually shrink it and then add more room on to Grace Court because of, so that delivery trucks can go through, and hopefully we can, in doing so, we can open up the freight zone area in front of Manoli's so that there's more street parking for everyone. I think that's all I have. Do you guys have any questions for us?
Just a question on converting it to the whole property. It used to be my zoning reading is like 15 years old. I don't know the zone for anything. So if you convert it, what is the maximum level of layers that you can have?
The max height is 30 feet. So depending how many floors, probably 3 stories. But the current zones, it's split zones. So one zone is also 30 feet and the other is 25. So very similar.
Okay. So 30 feet. So it's like community commercial in a way that what I used to know as community commercial. Sure. So mixed use too. So is that a thing you're pushing mixed use that there would be, combo or residential?
Any type of use is limited to 30 feet, and there's all different types of uses in this district. You can do strictly residential, but they're thinking of doing a mixed use type building, but you can do different types of uses.
Okay. Have you already talked to the residents and they're going to come forward and get notified?
No, something we forgot to mention. Next week we're having an open house, and a mailer went out to residents within 300 feet of the site, but we'll have that posted online. And yeah, next week it's next. I'm blanking all these meetings. It's next.
It's the 19th.
Tuesday.
Yeah. It's on the 19th, and it's actually going to be an on-site visit. I think it's the first. Right? Yeah, this is a new experiment. We've decided, Lauren indicated that the city hoped to start doing on-site visits so that the neighbors and people emerging in the community can actually physically be on-site to see. We can walk them around, we can show them our vision. It's a little nicer when you're there to be able to see it. But Tuesday the 19th from 4 to 5:30. Yeah, at the Asian Market. It's going to, the entrance is going to be, there'll be signs, but the entrance is going to be on the parking lot side. And we're doing a little makeshift area up above the 28, so the restaurant right upstairs.
Can you send it to our community council so they can share it with us?
Yes, of course.
We have that information and we'll push that out.
Yeah, that would be great. Because the other thing is, like, I wonder what residents think if you're putting the building in front, which is commonplace for a walkable community. If you have parking in the back, they might be like, hey, I don't like all this parking here right next to my home, So, I mean, it's just making everybody feel comfortable. And I'm sorry to ask so many questions because I love your business and what you've done in our community. But when you make changes, it's like a lasting impact far beyond our lives, and other people's, our children's lives and so on. So I just think the local residents should have primary input. So I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. But you only need to present to us. You don't need to have a vote from us, right?
It's up to your council if you'd like to take a vote.
Because usually we present and then vote the next month. Isn't that how we do it by our bylaws?
And we'll
Not
have,
by bylaws, not necessarily. So this is an opportunity to provide feedback. We could, at the end of this meeting, decide based on common consensus just to have a formal show of support or not, either way on the project. But this was an opportunity to ask questions.
So if we waited until our next meeting, it's not going to harm you in any way because you'll be talking to the neighbors.
Yeah, no, it's a really long process. Yeah, this is preliminary. We're starting with zoning. We're hoping that we are allowed to at least rectify the zoning issue. And I'm happy to talk to you afterwards just so I can take a few more questions. I do have answers to your parking concerns.
I'm just worried about, because like each one of us, we live in the neighborhood, somebody comes and needs something next door to us.
Right.
I feel like we have, the primary residents should have a voice first.
Absolutely. And I think that's why we're here tonight. We're here to, be transparent and let you know what we're doing.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Whoever wants to go.
Aaron, go.
Will you talk about tenants today versus tenants post changes? So will the Asian market stay, is what I'm trying to get. Does the restaurant stay? What do they want?
So just to not share too much detail, I have attempted to dialogue with them on several occasions to meet because their lease is up soon, like within a year. They have not indicated either way. It's a mystery to us as well. So the thing with it is we would love to support their ability to stay. And I say that in such a way that because I want to be transparent. The building is in disrepair. It needs to be addressed first and foremost. So in order to do that, we do need to figure out how we can either bump back some of their usage space so that we can do some construction or, but we've talked to them and we haven't formally met. So I honestly have no idea what their future plans are.
I think it looks interesting and great. I'm just curious with this zoning, is there something else locally that's zoned the same that kind of gives a picture of just 9th and 9th in general as all community business?
Smith Marketplace all the way to the tap house.
All the way along.
There's 5 zones, there are.
Am I right? Oh, I just meant like the immediate, literal 9th and 9th Coffee
Yeah, just
Garden.
trying to picture a business in our community that would be similarly zoned, so we kind of have an idea of size and scope and Center City.
So
The stuff on the Maven District stuff is all CM, so it's 30 feet, mixed use.
Okay.
Restaurant, Pilates, yoga.
similar height.
Similar to what's already there on 2nd and 3rd East across the street. Okay.
I do have a flyer prepared with comparisons of the districts in terms of zoning standards. I only have a few of them, but if anyone wants them from me, it's also posted online. So, but I can set them in the back for anyone to grab as they need.
Taylor?
Yeah, hey, thank you for jumping in the neighborhood. It's really cool to see that spreading past 9 to 9. Are you guys working with the city on you mentioned the 9 line, which is kind of generally north-south, but the actual bike path, is that incorporated with patio that we were talking about?
That's what we would need further down the line. The transportation guys already made contact with us, and that would be part of the planning of the project.
I think Mary even drew that in just to our right. Yeah. Just a concept. Oh yeah. You're welcome to come up and look at that. Yeah, we're just interested in working with the community, with the locals, and hearing your ideas so that we can incorporate it into the plans. Especially knowing, the comfortable part of it here is you guys already have a visual on what the building looks like. We have a photo of what it looks like here, used to look like, and you can walk by it and you can have a visual of what it currently looks like. Manoli's is 30 feet. So just if you walk by Manoli's, you can kind of see what the height is, and so you'll kind of just look across and you'll know what the height limitation is. And I think they allow for like a 5-foot parapet well, to hide all of our roof units. Do you want to?
I just love the idea because the community, I thought, wanted to have a continuation of an expansion of the restaurant row that was starting here. But just want to make sure you're working with the city and transportation because 45-degree parking and bike lanes don't really mesh really well. Also, the sidewalk should be a lot wider to encourage walking. That area really is starting to expand into a real nice restaurant road, but it does need wider sidewalks to encourage people to walk. And I know we're still at the start of it with the city, but you should add in the future some flexibility to put in wider sidewalks during the development.
I think that's part of, Lauren can maybe speak to it and then Aaron as well. I think that's part of some of the remodel effort of the 9-line. I would assume like what the sidewalk, what the infrastructure is right there.
Right. I know transportation is looking on completer streets, right. Building to building with wider sidewalks, right. But it's still in process. But heads up.
Well, they'll address the parking as well.
But the 45-degree parking is a big issue on 9th South, especially with the 9-line bike.
Yeah. Thanks for pointing that out.
Yes, sir.
I just maybe had a couple comments. Someone asked about the number of stories, I think.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be very hard to get more than 2 stories in there at 30 feet unless you're doing wood frame residential or something like that. Just for people's understanding of the scale. I'd just be curious if you get a picture of what are the next steps in time when I assume right now you're gathering neighborhood input, local neighbors input, so that change can take place. How long does that take and what are the next steps?
Yeah, well, I would love the next step to be all in favor, say aye, and then, she could stamp and we get approval, but that's not going to happen.
Well, the next step is our open house next week, and then it'll go to the Planning Commission for a public hearing. I'll do an analysis. There are some standards that the Planning Commission and the City Council use for their review of master plan amendments. So I'll look at these standards and do an analysis and give the staff report to the Planning Commission to review, and they'll have a public hearing. I'm thinking it'll be the first or second meeting in March that this will go to the Planning Commission. And then it's transmitted to the City Council office, and we usually anticipate about 3 to 4 months to get, it depends on the project, but in total these zoning map amendments can take about 8 to 9 months. So there'll be months after it goes to the Planning Commission that it'll go back to the City Council.
Just out of curiosity, just considering the zoning amendment proposal, show of hands who would be in favor of the rezoning proposal. And we would look forward to hearing more from you guys as you continue with the project and get more developed ideas. We'd love to see you.
Can I just ask you about public transit? I think there's this 900 South bus. Is that the only one that goes on there? 9 South? Is that the only public transit there?
I'm not certain about that.
Yeah, there is a stop for the 205 across the street on the block, but yeah, that's the only direction.
Yeah. So that's the only public transit that goes there that I'm certain about. But you're right, the diagonal parking is a problem. But in terms of the levels, yeah, you get 3 levels in commercial, community commercial. You get 3 levels all the time, so expect that.
A good example is that we did the project at 402 East. That's where Manoli's is currently. That's a 2-story building and it's 30 foot tall. So our intention there was we had nice tall ceilings. We're not looking to do 3 stories.
Just look at my neighborhoods.
But I know, right, it's pretty hard to get 3 stories in.
We have two last questions, and then we'll have to move on to our next agenda item.
Yeah, it's more of a comment. Yeah, it definitely, along that corridor, your reference to getting to be called Restaurant Row, which is, I think, a really positive development for the neighborhood. Because it's like, I would make this point, it's like if you want a walkable neighborhood, one of the things you can need is a destination. And it's, you know, it's an amenity for the neighborhood. And I think with the coming 9 line, that's just going to enhance that even more. And I think this concept of making it sort of a showpiece or a centerpiece for that area is great. So I think it's a great idea. Support it.
Thank you.
And I would add, you've already put 2 great restaurants in there. You've done a great job with both. So you're obviously responsible. Good.
We have one last question in the back.
Hey, I'm kind of confused. You're talking about keeping the building, but then you're talking about 2 or 3 stories. So what, so, I don't understand.
If it opens it up for them to do that.
So down the road, you can add stories to it, or you can tear it down and build a whole new building?
We can add stories to it right now. The building's currently 20 feet.
Okay.
We can build a separate building where the parking is, if we wanted. That's conceptually what we're talking about right now, is keeping the existing building, restoring it. And then a second building.
Building in the parking lot.
Street side, smaller, yes, that would allow us to do commercial on the bottom and live working as above. So a
Okay.
mixed use building.
That makes more sense, because I didn't really know.
Yeah.
I think we missed that.
Yeah, and the building isn't, like I said, it's not structurally sound. I mean, it's, you know, it's standing because it's been there for a really long time, hasn't been disturbed. But, you know, we do need to re-support it. And so the roof really does need to be redone. It leaks like a sieve.
Yeah,
So
I know it's old.
it's very old, and so we'd like to be able to kind of dig in and see what we can do. So it, you know, Will is our contractor.
So the separation is down the center of that building? Is that what's happening?
The zoning.
Yeah, the zoning.
Zoning, okay.
Yeah, so if you can come and look at these, you know, at
Very typical to have a split zone property.
Okay.
And that property has been a property since like 1940.
Right.
So it's strange.
All right, makes sense now.
I just wanted to comment and let everyone know that we are the Salt Bay Spa, and we're here to just hear about everything and let you guys know that many of our clients that we've acquired since we've been open are members of the community and do live within the community, and just are completely just have nothing but great things to say about our building and the businesses that are coming into the area and what they've done for the neighborhood. And so that's been our experience with people from the neighborhood, and Kathia's projects are just beautiful and well-maintained and give such a great aesthetic and feel to the area as well. So we've been really happy to be a part of the community and support the community in that way too as a business.
And I live in the neighborhood as well. And as far as, you know, as somebody that lives here, I have a son, and I was worried about, you know, can I raise him in this neighborhood? And you know, the crime and everything else. And I feel like projects like these and gentrifying the neighborhood, it makes me feel like, yeah, I can, you know, raise my child here. It is home, and you know, it's bringing new life to the neighborhood. So.
The contractor, I don't think that building can be safe once you start tearing into it, so I think most likely it's going to be gone.
You know, you'd be surprised what Will can do.
I will be surprised.
You'd be surprised at what
Don't forget,
structural beings
don't
can do.
forget that fresh use has existing buildings.
Thanks, everyone. We'll stay updated on this project as they move forward through the process. Next on our agenda is an item that I think many of you have heard about already this week. The Georgia apartments in our community are an issue that we've been focused on for quite some time. We've been talking about the Georgia apartments here within the Community Council at many meetings over the past several months and the past several years. When the mayor came and spoke with us in November of 2017, there was an issue that came up at that time. We've talked with Aaron and Detective King and Detective Peterson before that many times over, just with the
You guys mind keeping the continued conversation outside because we're recording it and they won't be able to hear it. So thank you.
Thanks, Janae. So this is an issue that we have been talking about quite a bit and have really been very focused on as a community council. As you know, there was some news this week that Tim is here to talk to us a little bit about, and Aaron, I think you'll also probably have some things you want to weigh in on as well. So without further ado, I'd like to turn the floor over to Tim Cosgrove from the mayor's office.
I'm done. Thank you. I'm Tim from the Mayor's Office. Mayor Jack Biskupski sends her warm greetings. Hope you're all doing well during the winter months. Just some quick handouts that I wanted to point your attention to. I've set them on the back table. The Mayor's asking for your help in nominating women for the Didi Corradini Women's Leadership Award. There are 3 categories. One for emerging leader, community leader, and opportunity builder. And you have so many great candidates in this community council. Aaron Mindenhoff, Sarah Allen, Tony. But I encourage you to please participate and help the mayor nominate for the Didi Corradini Women's Leadership Award. Also, the mayor put her State of the City address, some of the highlights and the priorities from infrastructure to affordable housing, public safety, clean air, transportation, infrastructure. I've set that information on the back table if you'd like to pick up one of those. We're in the thick of the legislative session, and the mayor has a legislative team that's working on the issues. I put the priority of the issues that the city's watching and monitoring on the back of this. So if you have items that you'd like to pick up and read and address, you can reach out to our legislative leadership team. There's a lecture March 14th on small real estate development. And I know there's a lot of interest in that in this particular community council. So there's one in the afternoon at the Sugar Space area and one in the evening at the city library. If you want to participate in that, the information's on the back table. And then again, we have 10 high schools in Salt Lake City. We're recruiting youth for the Mayor's Youth Coalition on Drug, Alcohol, Tobacco Prevention. If you know of youth that would like to participate and get involved, please take one of those home and get your youth recruited to represent their high schools on the Mayor's Coalition. Any questions on those items? Okay, Georgia Apartments. Monday, February 11th, our fire marshal went into the Georgia Apartments, red tagged the building. It was a scheduled follow-up due to some non-compliance and neglect from the owner. That means that the building is not safe to be occupied. Usually in a red tag, you have to close the building immediately. It's not safe. The fire marshal saw to it that there was a fire watch, someone there to watch the building for 72 hours, giving time to the residents to ensure that the building wouldn't catch on fire, or that if in the happenstance that it did, the fire watcher would be there to get dispatch and get firefighters there immediately. As soon as the building was red tagged, Mayor Biskupski, with the support of City Council, Aaron Mendenhall, Salt Lake County dispatched deployed hand, Housing and Neighborhood Development. Our Housing and Neighborhood Development team, headed up by Tony Milner, set up a outreach for housing center at the Salt Lake County building across the street from the Georgia Apartments, and started enlisting agencies. This was all done within a couple of hours. By noon, they were already set up, and within a couple of hours had already enlisted a number of agencies: Salt Lake City Housing Authority, Salt Lake County Housing Authority, the Red Cross, Department of Workforce Services, Community Action Agency, Catholic Community Services, LDS Services. Who am I? Oh, I look at our law enforcement, our Community Connection Center. So they also had licensed clinical social workers on site from our host team with Detective King to work with the families and ensure that their safety is being met first and foremost, and then help them find housing in the interim. I just came back from a meeting, and as of today, there's 42 units in that building. 31 of them that were occupied. 30 of them have received services. 24 of them have engaged housing. 6 are still in the process of receiving housing, and 1 is still yet to be identified. The unit is still yet to be identified. I don't know if they're out on vacation, they're not present, but there's still 1 left to be reached out to. That's the current update. Any questions?
What's next? What happens when the weather warms up and the pipes aren't frozen anymore?
So the building itself is called an unconditioned space, where it's separate from the elements from the outside. It separates the walk-through area. Those areas with the glass panes, glass doors have been broken. You can step through there, walk through there. I went on a walk with our CAT team, our Community Action team, just before Thanksgiving, and it was 20 degrees in that area. The wind was blowing through there. Like I said, there's nothing to stop the elements from coming in. When the fire marshal went in Monday morning, this is the timing of a perfect storm. We had the snow, and the fire suppression system was frozen. And if there was a fire, there would be nothing to put the fire out in that building. There's not working smoke detectors, not working fire alarms, not fire extinguishers in the hallways. So that's why there's a fire marshal there for the next 72 hours, except when I came back from that meeting this afternoon, just a few minutes ago, they extended that time till Saturday at noon. So there will be a little more time before to help the residents if they need to go back in and get any personal items out of the building, out of the rooms.
Sarah, can I chime in on that one? Tim, you probably have some numbers in front of you that I didn't bring, but that it was in the press release that the landlord was evicted, so to speak, from the Good Landlord program last fall. She owes, basically, if you're in the Good Landlord program, those of you who are landlords, because more than 90% of landlords in the city are in the Good Landlord program, because you pay a whole lot less to get your business license than you do if you're not in the program. If you get kicked out of the program, it gets very expensive to operate a business. She's kicked out of the program and owes the city quite a lot of money to have that. So it's not so much just fix the windows and you can come back in and rent again, because as we've seen on the reporting on Tuesday, I think it was, The news reports were linking it to a fire that they covered there just a couple years ago. She didn't repair the units that were burned. The landlord hasn't done maintenance, basically. So I don't think it's likely that we're going to see a sudden change in that behavior, and the amount of work that's needed would be quite expensive, in addition to a number of fines that she owes the city for operating a business that way. So it's really quite complicated, and I would be surprised personally to see a change.
The city councilwoman's correct. There were a number of issues. It wasn't just, it was the fire escape, it was the egress around the building if they were to try to get a fire truck in there. These issues have been going on for months.
Like 20 years.
Yeah, or you might have remembered, we talk about this every community council. There's an issue going on at the Georgia Apartments. When I first came on 2 years ago, I went on a ride-along with Detective King, and there was reports of transients and the units that are left unoccupied that are uninhabitable. We had Salt Lake County Health Department go in. So it's been going on for at least 2 years that I've been here, but the community action team that we had working on this, we meet every other week. We identify those civil enforcement issues that she's not complying with. We try to get her to work with civil enforcement to comply. She's given time to fulfill those obligations. Sometimes she'll fix some of them and not all of them, and so that requires our civil enforcement to return and go back. I've been there 3 times in the last 3 months, October, November, December, and right before Thanksgiving, the units had no heat. The boiler was out, the heat pump wasn't working. We had Salt Lake County Health Department go in. People were using their stoves to heat their apartments. I could go on and on and on, but this has just been an ongoing issue. Yes.
So I have 2 questions. I live on Rosewood Avenue, and Karen is very familiar with our street. Hi. So it's just right around the corner. So I see a lot of action from the Georgia Apartments. My first question is, the neglect from the landlord has cost our community a lot, and especially the residents. And I'm not a landlord, so I'm not familiar with those sorts of laws, but what consequences, other than just fines, is the landlord face? Because it's been awful for our community and mostly for the last 2 years. And you might not have a question right now, or an answer right now, but my second question is, a lot of the crime that comes from the Georgia Apartments, and not necessarily from the residents, but from squatters in the unit. And so evacuating the building is nice and all, but is there any plan to handle the squatters that may come in the meantime?
So I'll take that one. So with my, one of the things my lieutenant was asking is if I come up with a kind of a long-term plan. I'm hoping that this isn't going to be something that's going to be years and years being vacant, but I've been tasked with kind of coming up with a plan to try to, once it gets boarded, because what will happen is, so once everyone's out, then they'll have people come in and actually have it boarded. So I'm trying to put together a plan for our department as far as how to handle the long-term and just getting controls in that. So I would just say, if you guys are seeing stuff, definitely call our dispatch and let them know. Give me a call and let me know what you're seeing. I say call dispatch because then it gets recorded, it gets documented, we have the statistics for that. And we can get that documented. Let me know. If you guys have any suggestions on ways to help protect, feel free to reach out and let me know any of your thoughts that we can incorporate.
Put the camera up in the interim.
So let me go back and address your first question.
I want to mention, Tim, though, that I don't think this is going to be vacant very long. There is a lot of interest to acquire that property. I think you guys know that.
I think it'd be a great location for a Liberty Wells library branch. I know it's hard to get crosswalks.
That's something that's so interesting.
But
it's going to be a
rather than selling it to a condo developer.
We had a housing crisis
I'd love a library in our community.
Let me address your first question on what can you do when a landlord keeps abusing and victimizing their own tenants like this. You know, we have a responsibility and an obligation to make sure that they have safe housing. The mayor's been working for years. She created the Blue Ribbon Commission to create affordable housing. And when we have a landlord that's taking advantage and victimizing and re-victimizing their tenants, you need to go to the state legislature. It's the state law that controls what we can enforce, what we can't enforce. In 2012, there was a House bill passed, House Bill 216, that limited the city's action in how often they can go in and check on multi-dwelling units, on multi-family housing units. And so we're limited by state law with what we can do and what we can't do. So if you want stronger laws for landlord and on landlords with tenant protection, you got to go to the legislature.
I'm sure the state will be great partners with the city. All that they do, you know, hold my hand forward.
To go back to address City Councilwoman Mendenhall's question on, she received a $13,524 fine last year, and that's compound, and the same thing for losing her business license on the landlord tenant program, $14,514 this year. So
did she pay them last year?
No. So that's over $30,000 right there. And she's received multiple fines from civil enforcement, from building inspector. It's adding up. Yes, ma'am.
And you reduce those to judgment, and
that's
we know where she is, right?
That's a process that they've been working through. It takes time. The city's not there.
She's not there?
The city attorney will have to follow through with that.
She's not.
Yes.
Is it only House Bill 216? We've got like a number of these kind of properties throughout this neighborhood, like the hotels along State Street, and there's others too. You said 216 was on multi-family housing, so I don't know. Not to get distracted with the hotel thing.
Nothing that really reaches to the level of the Georgia apartments. I mean, we don't have anything in the city. Last year we had so many calls. Do you remember how many calls we had? 640 calls on the Georgia apartment. Service calls from the police department.
But is it only that bill? Is it only that bill that the city points to and says we can't do anything for multiple years? You said 20 years. We've known that this is
not as bad as
it currently is, but
city codes and ordinances can't supersede state statute. So we're limited by what we can follow through with by state statute. We can't have anything stronger than the state statute provides for. So what tools we have, we've been working them. We've been using them. We've been constantly following through over and over and over, month after month, week after week, on these infractions, on these violations, on this negligence.
So when I call Joel Briscoe and say, this is what I want you to address, other than HB 216, what do I say to him? Is that the only one?
That's up to you. That's up to you to say what you'd like the state legislator, the state representative to represent you in the state on those issues.
I'll give you a couple of them.
Is there legislation regional?
None that I'm aware of, no.
Nuisance? Are you talking about nuisance, Bill Taylor?
Well, whatever needs to get out of the way so that we don't have to wait 20 years to get action, like, and then give these people 72 hours to get out. Right? So, like,
Some things work faster than others.
That's state law. State law. We're ruled by state law. It's not only 216 was the very last bill that was passed that I can reference out of my recollection, out of my mind, on this issue. But state statute, you can go into the Constitution Code online. There's a whole section of it. It's huge. And you can read how strong the landlord rights are within the state statute, within the state statute.
You can tell the mayor that she needs to put her weight behind is coming, because the tenants are going to be falling over the squatters as they're changing spaces over there.
Yeah, we've already talked to our building inspector. He's well aware. He's on site. He's ready to go. We've had other experiences like this that they've had to close down. Mountain Courtyard Suites was one of them. That's totally closed. You can't get in there. They keep a good eye on it. They keep it boarded up. Once it's closed down, they keep those units boarded up and closed.
Okay.
Yes, Bill.
I was going to point out at the initiative of our chair, Ms. Edelman, that she took the initiative and sort of, I'd call it a press release, that we circulated amongst the board today and approved in support of the action that the city has taken. I think it's important because if you just read the story online, in the Tribune, it doesn't really give the full picture. It sort of emphasizes what a hardship it is for the tenants, which it is, but it doesn't really give the picture, I think, of why this had to happen.
Well, I really appreciate that.
So I think it's important to,
I know Sarah was working on it.
to be indicated the community itself is supporting this.
So I went down there to the housing outreach, and there were 2 people with disabilities that they've already secured better housing that's designed for people with disabilities than that apartment building had provided for. So a lot of them are going to be better off. There was a veteran there that was eligible for VA housing, and that's going to be better. Better than living in the Georgia apartments.
Has anybody contacted Carol White, the owner? Because the paper keeps saying that the Tribune has tried to contact her, but they haven't been successful. Any contact on the
She lives in a slum on 10th East and Garfield, on 11th East and Garfield. She has trees growing in her rain gutters. I've known the lady for 15 years. The last 4 times I saw her face to face, closer than you and I are, I says, "Carol, how are you?" She dropped her eyes to the ground, sat sideways, and went around me. This lady is not all there. The big fire that caused finally something to be done was July the 3rd of 2016. I was told at the time by civil enforcement for Salt Lake City, some guy named Winston, I don't remember if that was first or last name, he told me that there's no remediation necessary because that's a lifestyle choice. It's the same as if your neighbor paints their house purple. It's really none of my business. That was the head of civil enforcement for the city 2.5 years ago. They've done a lot. I mean,
so there was a fire in 3 of the units that are closed.
Scott Mickelson has done tremendous work on it. But the state limits what can be done. And what can be done the city should have some control over this. But a week ago, they were burning tires in the alley behind my house, which is between my house and the Georgia apartments. There are multiple tires on the roof of the building. They've been working on the roof for at least 15 years. They've never had a permit to do that because they're doing repairs. But I am so happy to see that these people are being pushed out. A lot of the people in there are not good people. They're not the kind of people any of you would want for your neighbors.
Well, there's really no place.
The fire was caused by meth. And I've tried repeatedly to get the fire department to tell me what caused the fire. We had a new roof put on. A kid from the neighborhood worked on removing our old roof. And he was astounded that that building still stood because he was there on the 3rd of July. And he says, we thought we burned it all down. We were all going to die. I was out of town the next day when I came home. There was a bonfire on 2nd East. This is not unique stuff. This building should have been shut down a long time ago. I was at the meeting, or at the planning commission, or the zoning commission, when they changed the zoning on the building. Nothing that was promised was done. The building was sold by Magnet Investment to a guy named Kelly. About 3 years later, he declared bankruptcy. And Carol came in and started buying houses in the neighborhood, started living in the place, but it's been a drug house all of this time. I have never talked to a police officer that hasn't said, we do what we can, and every officer, every fireman knows that building, and every one of the firemen that I've talked to said, we'd love to see it burn down.
Well, we don't want it to burn down with people inside. But Detective King and I work on the community action team that's made up of civil enforcement, building inspectors, adult protective services. We have the county health department. We've been in there time and time again. I've got the original document that I wrote back in October of 2017 was the units being uninhabitable. I went with the building inspector to help them close them up. You know, so we're well aware of it. We've been just working it through the process.
So you had two questions, Jennifer, and Lisa, and you had other hands up.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I just want to, I feel like we haven't really gotten an answer to what happens next. I guess because you mentioned that there's a lot of interest, but is that like they propose an offer to this woman who we don't necessarily think is responsive? Like, what's the next step for what happens to that
So
building?
it's been red tagged as uninhabitable unless you can fix those conditions. First off, all the people have to be out.
Is there a time frame for that?
Unless you can fix those conditions, or she's interested in selling the building, that can't be inhabited.
But what if she just sits, like, I think we're concerned is how long is it going to sit there unoccupied is our concern.
She's the building owner. She still owns the building. I mean, we can keep enforcing the fines and the civil enforcement. If there's a crime, she could go for criminal. But the process is that she still owns the building. The building will be boarded up and closed, uninhabited, until she either sells it or fixes the issue.
Tim, I had my hand up for a long time. I was just gonna ask if there are any programs for rehabilitation of apartments, because we know that we need housing in our.
Well, there's a number of them. She's not for nonprofit. There's a number of them for nonprofit, but she's for profit, so she's got to make that decision.
I wanted to speak to this. I live on Ramona, within a block of there, and like her, it's frustrating to have this so close and to deal with so constantly. And I pass it multiple times every day. And my assumption all along has been that everybody needs a place. And if this causes me some minor inconvenience so that people can have their place, then so be it. And I'm willing to undergo that. But then to find out when this happened, people were paying $600 to $900 a month to live in that place. It's like that's criminal. I was livid. Like that made me more self-righteous about this than any other aspect of it. Like those people were being taken advantage of. And probably because they felt that they didn't have any other places to go. Maybe they wouldn't pass background checks into other places. Maybe they weren't mentally stable enough. Maybe like whatever the issues were. But hopefully it sounds like they're all being taken care of. And thank you for doing that. And
the point,
hopefully
exactly
keep it on a
right.
positive trajectory.
I mean, the residents, the tenants, this is not their fault. This is the landlord's fault. This is the owner's fault. She was negligent. She didn't follow through. People have a right to live in a safe place.
It's not the city or the mayor's fault either.
No. Thank you, Zach. Yes, George. Thanks for your
Can you or Joe Post talk about Salt Lake City Housing Authority, possible plans for that?
I don't know. You're Joe or...
Okay, so I'm Joe with the Housing Authority. I've been here quite a few times. I think most of you know me. We have made a lot of effort to try and work it out with the owners of the motels. We now own the Capitol Motel, and we receive funding, and I tried this in December, we have plans in place and hope to break ground this summer with a new apartment there. We have been in contact with the owner of the Georgia for quite some time, and
You've paid rents to her for quite some time.
it's a difficult situation. Trying to work out. We could buy it off her weeks ago, but you know, we knew the situation. I give a lot of credit to Aaron and to your community council here, and Bill, and Doug Banks came up to me, 6 months ago. We got to do something about this place. And so we have made a lot of effort, and I think we're to a point where I can't say too much, but we've had some success acquiring these kind of properties before, and I think we're on a track to have that same kind of success here. So that's about all I can say right now.
That's really
So it will be a process, and it will take a couple months to figure out. But please be assured that we're on the job on this one.
If we can help you, let us know, because you guys do fabulous work.
Well, if they do, and if they seek any funding from the city, which is likely, because often you do, either through the RDA or the council through the Housing Trust Fund, then there will be public hearings. And people came out over Capitol Motel and on both sides. And so we will want to hear from the neighborhood, whatever your position is. But of course, you'll know about that if it happens.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I just wanted to, I don't know this lady, and I feel badly for her, because if she has a disability, or if she has a visual impairment, I don't know, is she elderly? I don't know the circumstances. So I know that you guys are good guys and you try to communicate with people, but it seems like there's some sort of disconnect, and I hope that it can be resolved without her losing. Because if they put a lien against her property, then she's losing the whole property. Yeah, and that's I don't know if you're looking for it.
Well, I think as Tim has said, and as everybody knows, that there's a lot of limitations on when a city can take an action like this, not just Salt Lake City. And as you know from being residents for decades and however long you've been there, this is not a new problem. And as Tim has described, the city, the health department, aging services, sorry, I'm freezing right now. I've been in there and
You have a coat sitting.
all of those paths that I think the state's intention is to exercise all these other paths before this happens, to allow a business owner or an apartment owner to resolve issues before it hits the fan. And it's been going on for years. And so the city has a line in the sand, like every city in the state has a line in the sand. She has crossed the line in the sand. She has not corrected anything. And she's victimizing tenants, according to Aaron. Those tenants are victims. And yes, there are felons, and there are probably people with records that is going to make it really difficult. And we can't say everyone's going to get housing. That's a great report you gave tonight, but it is hard to find housing, and there are limitations. Joe Post can tell you more about that. So I am happy to criticize the administration at any time, and I am here, not Tim, of course. But I will tell you, they've done an incredible job of putting together this team from the two housing authorities, and all of the church organizations, the housing organizations, the social work, and even the Other Side Academy, they solicited to donate moving services to all the tenants. So they've done an amazing job of putting this together and working with the county to have extended hours and space that's walkable for people to go access all these services. So I really applaud.
Hear, hear, Tim.
Yes. Mayor Harrison.
It's recorded.
Sarah reminded me that the Utah Community Action Agency, Gina Seeley, if you want to make donations, it goes straight towards the individual's rent, goes right to the rent. And you can contact her at 801-214-3114. Gina Seeley at Utah Community Action Agency, 801-214-3114.
That's also our last post on the Community Council Facebook page too. That information is there as well. There's a website link.
And you can send a check or you can make a credit card payment as well. And like you said, they don't take anything off of that money. It goes directly to them, 100%.
And it's tax deductible.
Good job. 364-7765 for Crossroads Urban Center, because they also do the same thing too.
We're all gonna go home in 9 minutes. Talk fast, because I'm the last thing on the agenda. I just shoved my way up here. Sorry, Sarah. So as Tim mentioned, we're in the legislative session. We're about a third of the way through. I feel like an on-call nurse when we're in the session because stuff happens all of a sudden. And I'll tell you that the thing that's taken the most triage of Salt Lake City this session so far has been the Mill Creek boundary adjustment bill that apparently right now is on hold, pending negotiations. I'll tell you what though, I think that there's a fundamental difference in this conversation around what those negotiations mean. And what they don't mean for Salt Lake City is a change of our boundaries. What that means for you as residents is that we are not willing to give our tax revenue to Mill Creek, a 2-year-old city who incorporated knowing what their boundaries are. If we give them any of that, just the Brickyard itself was about $3 million in revenue. They did a plan to bring their boundary up to 2700 south. It's about $8 million property tax and sales tax and everything included in there. The Royal We shoveled those roads on Monday. Yep, services, anyway. It's a complicated pass, but basically unincorporated county land. When the Brickyard transitioned from being a brickyard into a resident or into a commercial development, they needed water. And the way that the state constitution or state statute laid it out in 1978 when this happened was that they basically needed to annex into Salt Lake City in order to access our water. That happened. It created this popsicle that is big Brickyard, or rather a lollipop that is Brickyard when you look at our map. The state legislature didn't like that and changed that statute after that annexation happened. So annexations like that can't happen anymore in Utah. They happened absolutely legally and according to state statute at the time. So that was 2 years before I was born. But Mill Creek feels like that's theirs, and it's been theirs. They incorporated, as you know, about 2 or 3 years ago. I get pretty heated about Mill Creek, so we'll just leave it at that. Right now, it seems like it's off the table, but they want to negotiate, and I'm telling you that I don't believe we will ever negotiate our boundaries. We're not going to ask you to subsidize Mill Creek. No, George.
There's some boundary changes you will be asked.
Yes, so there's a roundabout. You know the roundabout off of the new one, off of 20th East exit when you're eastbound on I-80, going to Tanner Park, that is Salt Lake City. They would like to control that. That gives us 0 property tax, 0 sales tax. There's no revenue that comes from that. We're not going to make any boundary adjustments that affect the revenue that comes into the city. Will we consider adjustments like that? Perhaps. It's yet to be determined. But there are some of those more minor adjustments that don't impact us as a city, in my opinion, or in the revenue.
2030s.
Say it again.
2030s, that roundabout when you get out the freeway.
Thank you, 2030s. So another thing I want to mention that is important to all of us in this community council especially is the homeless resource centers. We've just received a transmittal, I think this week, from the administration on an update to community support for the homeless resource center areas. So I can't tell you yet what that looks like. That'll be before the council hopefully in the next month or so. But I have I've pricked
that memory of our council, because it's been about 2 years since the sites were designated, and our council committed to supporting the communities that are the host communities for the homeless resource centers wholeheartedly. Now, what does that mean? Well, the rubber's starting to hit the road, and I mean that in a transit sense in one way, which I'll get to in a second. But we are just about to sign our interlocal agreement with UTA. Stay with me. We raised the sales tax in October, as you know, and a portion of that is going to pay for more bus service on 9th South and a few other routes starting in August. Well, we budgeted for that back when we finalized our budget, and it turns out that we have more money than we budgeted for, about $800,000 more, also because this interlocal is starting 2 months later than we thought it would. That's the primary reason. And so I proposed to the council, in pricking on that commitment from 2 years ago, that we invest that money, because it must be transit related, in transit improvements to the HRC host communities. And so the administration is going to be coming back to the council with a list of investments that we can make within a half a mile of both the Paramount High Avenue site and the 7th South site, which within a half mile bleeds into Liberty Wells. And so I'll be excited to come back to you with what those capital improvements can be that are transit related, but that's just the beginning, I hope, of a significant prioritization of money for the host communities, for our neighborhoods at large. Okay, so then I just wanted to remind you that we're getting more bus line and more frequent bus line and Sunday service and later hours on 9th South, both directions, and several other routes. That'll happen at the normal change date in August. We'll bring you more information as that gets closer. And then the other thing, did I hear a rumor that maybe the mayor's coming here next month? So come back next month, and I want to encourage you to ask her to support updates to the nuisance ordinance. And you guys who've been coming here for a while know that that's something I worked on about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and it hasn't been as impactful. Okay, it hasn't been impactful at all on motels. It turned out it was really impactful on residents, on rentals, so rental housing. And actually, maybe it'd be fun, next time I come back, I'll give you an update. Maybe we can have someone from civil enforcement come talk about that, because it's been hundreds of units that were not licensed and were creating nuisances in the neighborhood, have come into licensure thanks to that ordinance. But I really cut that ordinance out to work on the motels, and it has remained elusive. And so I know that the police attorney and city attorneys and civil enforcement have been looking at how to tune up that ordinance to work better on the motels. That's something I don't have yet as a council member, so the administration gets to produce something and transmit it to the council, and that's when I can take action. So let's support the administration in pursuing improvements to that nuisance ordinance so that we can be more effective at enforcing illegal activities around the motels. So come back next month. And look, we have 1 minute for questions. Yes.
Well, I was thinking we should also invite Mayor Jenny too, our new county mayor. That would be fun to come, Mayor Jackson and Jenny. So I was just going to ask if you happen, I know we're busy, Aaron, but did you happen to check on the Liberty Stake Center, the recreation center on that property? Did you?
I did.
Did you?
Yeah.
What did you hear?
They said they'd get back to us.
Well, good for you. That's a start.
Yeah. Let's talk about an opportunity for a library. It's too close to our library, actually.
Yeah, it would be.
That one's the one just 2 blocks.
It's an interesting potential community space.
Yeah.
It is. It would be great.
Yep.
Especially
and it'll probably turn into housing development if the city doesn't.
But in terms of, we're going to have a lot of kids there, or the women there at the shelter, and we already have, it would be great community space, because our community center is
We'll bring that up next month.
Okay.
Because the council can't acquire property or execute a contract.
Because I did talk to the scheduler, and he said, why doesn't the city buy it?
Okay, any one more question? I'll hang around after if you want to catch me.
Oh yeah, do you want my phone number? You already have it?
I think we put it in the agenda notes.
It's in there, you got me. 537-776. Hell yeah, that's what. Before we leave, Karen reminded me that I failed in the transition at the beginning of the meeting to take a quorum of our board members. We didn't really have any official business, but I think it's still a good idea to get a feel for who's here. Can all board members just raise their hands for me, please? 8 out of 13, that is a quorum, so we would have been good to go. Thanks, Karen. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Adjourned, just like it needed. Thanks everyone for coming tonight.